When the senior civil servant in the Culture Department came before the Public Accounts Committee, he was asked about the claim that he had agreed to Adam Smith's role in communicating with NewsCorp.
It just seemed to me extremely odd to be told that you had agreed as permanent secretary to enable a special advisor, Adam Smith, to act as the channel of communication between the Department and the Murdoch Empire. Is that true?
I just repeat what I said before. There was a very clear statement from the special advisor concerned.
No, I think we're asking about your role, not the Secretary of State's role. It's about your...
I did refer to your role twice in response to questions yesterday.
If I may, I'm just going to explain the nature of the statements yesterday. There was a clear statement by the special advisor who made it clear that the nature and content of those contacts was not authorised by the Secretary of State. It wasn't actually said yesterday, but they were not the nature and content of those contacts were not authorised by me. And he made it
was
clear
not authorised by you.
The nature and it was not authorised by the Secretary of State. The nature and content of those contacts, and it made it clear that he accepted that as a result, it fell short of the requirements established by the Secretary of State and the Permanent Secretary. That's part of his statement. As I say, the Secretary of State has provided a statement to Parliament. He's providing full written evidence on behalf of the Department, which will be available and in due course published through the Leveson inquiry. And he will no doubt, and has made it clear that he's very keen to answer questions as soon as
the issues I think that the chair of the Public Administration Committee wished me to raise were issues in relation to your role, not the Secretary of State's role. And the Secretary of State did say in evidence yesterday that you had agreed the role. And all I'm trying to get on the public record, given the public interest in this matter, is whether or not that is true.
And I'm explaining that the position was made clear in the Special Advisor's statement, where he said that the nature and content of those contacts was not authorised by the Secretary of State, and that the result was that it fell short of the requirements established by the Secretary of State and the Permanent Secretary.
But did you know of them?
The statement makes it clear that the nature and content of those contacts was not authorised by the Secretary of State, and it fell short of the requirements established by both the Secretary of State and the Permanent Secretary. That's the statement.
Does it answer the question about whether you knew, as the Secretary of State said to Parliament yesterday, that Mr. Smith was acting as a channel of communication with News International in relation to the Department about this matter?
I think the position was set out clearly in the various statements yesterday, and in particular the Special Advisor's statement, in which he accepted that nature and content of those contacts was not authorised by the Secretary of State, and the effect was that they fell short of the requirements established by the Secretary of State and the Permanent Secretary.
Stonewall on this. Did you do a guidance note to Mr. Smith on his crucial role on this £8 billion deal?
I'm very sorry, Madam Chair. These are very important matters. They're rightly the subject of interest in Parliament. That's why the Secretary of State made a full statement to Parliament yesterday, answered questions. That's why he wants to give evidence to the Leveson inquiry and is preparing written and oral evidence. I've come and I'm obviously ready to speak about the £9.3 billion of Olympic costs. I've made clear the position set out in the various statements of yesterday, and I think I just need to stand on that without any implications being drawn from that whatsoever, given that I've been given no notice of these questions.
But the MPs continued to press him.
The Secretary of State chose to tell Parliament yesterday that you had specifically approved the role, and that astonishes me, that you approved the role of a special advisor to carry out communication between the Department and the Murdoch Empire when the Department of the Secretary of State was acting in this quasi-judicial capacity.
With the greatest respect, Madam Chair, I've made clear those statements were made.
You're not answering the question.
Well, no, with the respect, I've explained and drawn attention to the references in the statement about the nature and content of those contacts was not authorised, and the effect was that it fell short of the requirements established by the Secretary of State and the Permanent Secretary. And as I've explained...
So you did think it was appropriate for a special advisor to play this role, in that you authorised that role, you believed, as a civil servant. We're not asking, and this is not as the Permanent Secretary, you believed it was completely appropriate for a special advisor to take on the role of acting as the channel of communication between the department and the Murdoch empire.
I'm very sorry, Madam Chair, but I think I've made clear the position. I've referred to the statements. I've made it clear that full written evidence will be available and provided to the full public judicial inquiry that's been established. And I think I was just particularly given that no notice has been given.
Jonathan Stevens. And link